Hi, fourth graders. We are going to look at the 4 pages in a reading, small book, reading writing workshop book about reread, your theme, the historical fiction, and then the connotation denotation. So when we look at this here, first reread. We know that when we have a harder text or when it's historical fiction, there might be stuff that we're not familiar with. So not being familiar with things, we go back and reread. For example, here, if we didn't know what the rabbit dance is, we would go back and reread the part of the Shoshone culture. And it would tell us that the tradition honors the rabbit that is an important food source. I can also infer from this that the Shoshone have a close connection to nature. And so I can also figure out why they did it. They did it in special occasions. So that also would be something that I would be looking at and looking towards. So if I look at our your turn part, what do Lewis and Clark need from Chief Camowait when we reread A Surprise Reunion to find out? So if I go back to the surprise reunion and I look for the part of what do they need from Camowait? Well, Lewis and Clark, it says in here, he explained the rest of his party was waiting at the river with a supply boat. Lewis needed the strength and endurance of the Shoshone horses to help transport the supplies across the difficult land. In return, Lewis offered the Shoshone food and other goods. Okay, so that tells us what he needed. So going back and rereading can help us to figure out what they needed. Now, when it comes to a theme, that's the overall message that the author is trying to get across. So how do we figure out the story theme? Well, we identify the theme and we think about what the characters do and say and how they change. Those details will help you figure out this in the story. So if we look at this, it says, this is just a recap of the story here. It says, in the distance, laughing children were playing with a ball made of rawhide, and Camowait smiles as he remembers the game he played as a child. So what we can think of is that watching the children remind him, Chief Camowait, of his sister, because it talked about how, and then down here it talks about how he had how he played that with his sister. And then another detail that we have is that he felt a dull pain in his stomach for his little sister because she had been snatched from camp. So another part of that would that Chief Camowait feels pain at the loss of his sister. So he watches the children, reminds him of his sister, then he feels a pain because he lost his sister. Now as we go on, we have 2 other details to put in here. So we have Sacagawea quickly ran to him, tears filled her dark eyes. The pain and sadness Camowait had carried over the years retreated to a forgotten place. My brother, she cried, is it really you? How long has it been? Lewis and Clark were happy to have unwitting partners in this reunion. Chief Camowait promised that he would provide whatever help and resources needed. So when we look at that idea of what else did he have, or did he, let's see if I can, oh, this would have me write in a pencil, so I could do that. Okay, so what's another fact that we would put in there that is still going on with this idea? He watches the kids, thinks of his sister, he feels the loss and the pain of losing his sister, and then what happens? He reunites with his sister, and the pain goes away. Alright, he reunites with his sister, and the pain goes away. So what could our overall theme be here? Well, he's talking about family and memories. So, and we see his change in his overall person where he goes from sad to happy. So we could say memories and family can be connected. Or another way of putting that is memories, I would say memories keep us connected to our family. Especially when they're gone from us, right? The memories that we have of our loved ones, they keep us connected to our family. And that's kind of how you go about figuring out that theme that the author's trying to get across to us. Okay. Now the next thing we look at is our historical fiction. Historical fiction takes place in the past. It includes realistic characters, events, and settings. And it may include real people and actual events. Okay, so Sacagawea, real person. Lewis and Clark, real people. Going across the river, real event. All that kind of things takes place in the past. And when we look at our text evidence or our text feature, it would be dialogue, the conversation, the speaking between the characters, and it helps us understand what they're thinking and feeling. So when we read that dialogue, it should give us more of an insight to that person. I already gave you 2 reasons that it's that it shows historical fiction, because Sacagawea was a real person, because Lewis and Clark were real people, because the Shoshone people are real. All those types of things would be examples of why it is considered historical fiction. Okay. So when you do your workbook page like this, I want you to think about that same idea, that you would be looking at your workbook and saying, okay, you're going to be saying, okay, I have, when I have, it says, what is your text feature? Your text feature is dialogue. Then what does it help you to do? It helps you to show this or that. How do you know it's historical fiction? Tell me the ways that you know it's historical fiction, not just because there's real people. What real people? Because there's real places. What real places? Be more specific in those. As I've looked at your work, I want you to become more specific in your answers with those things. Okay? All right. So connotation, denotation. We went over this in poetry. Connotation is an idea, meaning, or feeling associated with a word, whereas denotation is the dictionary definition. So when I see the word scrawny here, its connotation differs from its denotation. The denotation, the dictionary definition, means very thin. The connotation is that it's weak and vulnerable. She had been scrawny and demanding and had an irritating habit of following me everywhere. She was weak. The connotation was scrawny. Scrawny means very thin, but if something's very thin, they're probably very weak. Like we're talking about like a scrawny cat or a scrawny dog who might be out and they don't have a home and you can see their skin and bones. They're scrawny, but then they're probably not very strong either. So that kind of thing, the not very strong is the connotation. The denotation, the dictionary definition, meaning very thin. Okay. Snatched. The word snatched means to take quickly. But the word snatched also, if I say somebody snatched that, it has a negative meaning, like it was done in a way that wasn't very nice and maybe even wrongly done. Okay? That type of thing is what a connotation and a denotation are. You're not doing the workbook page associated with that because I would be doing it with you in class if we were going to be doing it. So anyway, historical fiction and the theme of things, looking for that overall message from the lesson that the author wants to communicate, and then rereading to help us to understand things in a little better way. All right. Have a good one and hope your workbook pages go well as well.